everyone, I'm Fran and welcome to Delicious Sparkly Cakes, where you can learn how to make amazing cakes for your friends and family. In fact, today the cake that I've made, it was for my nephew, who asked me to make a car cake for his birthday. It's a very specific car because he loves sports car and he loves this particular Italian brand. But now let's have a look how exactly I make this cake with all the tips and tricks, so you're not going to be overwhelmed and you're not going to make mistakes. First of all, I cut my cake in three. Then I put some buttercream onto a cardboard. This is the one that I use just for cakes. And then I've put my first layer of cake. Then I've spread some buttercream onto the first layer and I carry on with the second one as well. Then I've added the last layer of the cake and I've put it in the fridge to chill out, so it is easier to cut it afterwards as it gets a bit harder. Meanwhile, I printed the car from the side, folded some part of the wheels on the template because at the moment I'm not going to work on this part, but I'm going to add the wheels afterwards. I put the photo of the car in the middle of the cake because it is a little bit higher in the middle and it is better for this kind of car. And then I cut it so from the back and then at the front as well. Then I rounded all the edges of the car, in some places even with the help of my hand, as it crumbled less. What I did also was to find lots of photos on the internet about this car and trying to look at the car from every single angle so I could get it as precise as possible. With the help of a round cutter, I'm going to cut where the wheels are going to be and remove just a little bit from the cake. From one of the pieces of cake that I've removed earlier on, I've added a piece at the top of the cake so it looks more round, and then I removed the edges again. I removed a little bit of cake from the front bottom of the car and then rounded a little bit, the same I did at the back of the car as well. Then I crumb coated the cake a couple of times and every time I put it in the fridge so that the buttercream could get harder. Now that we're done with the carving of the cake, we can start covering the cake and make it look like more realistic. Let's roll some white fondant as long and bigger as the cake. And now very carefully let's cover the whole cake. Work with your hand to make sure that the fondant is well glued to the cake. Cut all the fondant around the cake that we don't need, that it is extra. At the bottom of the cake we're going to put a very thin dummy that is going to need to support the whole cake. To make sure it won't move, I'm going to add some cocktail stick onto this dummy, and then I'm going to put the cake on top of it, but very careful. I don't know if you noticed, but in the inside part of the wheels it is a bit darker, and that's why I've added some black fondant. To make the wheels, I've rolled some black fondant, which is quite thick, and then with a round cutter I've cut it 4 wheels, 4 round circles. And then to make it look a little bit thicker, I've pressed and pushed them a little bit more. And to make the patterns of the wheels, I've used this pen holder, which I think is quite perfect. Obviously, just in case someone wonders, I've cleaned it before, so it is fine, it can be used, there's no problem with that. The Fiat 500 Abarth has some red features even on the wheels, and that's why I've added 4 circles onto the wheels. And then in the middle a black circle, which is slightly smaller. Because the wheel has some silver things on it, I've decided to paint in them, as I thought it could have been the easiest way to do it. And in the middle I've painted the scorpion as well. Using the template, I'm tracing the lines of the windows and the car doors as well. To make the windows, I'm going to use a grey fondant, which is really thin. Now you have 2 options. You can either put this fondant on top of the other white fondant, or you can cut it with the same size as the window. But because it was too humid here, I know that it is really hard to remove some fondant and replace it with some more of the same size and of the same shape. I've added also some black fondant all around the windows. And then always looking at the photo from all angles. From my PC, I've added some more features, like where the lights are going to be and all the other bits and pieces. Honestly, there is not too difficult to make, but there's so many things, small things that need to be done, like the lights and wheels. So it is a work that needs a little bit of time. Now it's time to make the car logo of the Abarth, which is this kind of scorpion, which is in yellow and in red. And to do so, first of all, I'm going to use some grey fondant, then some black that I'm going to put on top of it. And And then I'm going to use some yellow and red fondant. First of all, I'll draw the shape of the logo. Then I cut it. And finally, I'm going to paint with black, as it is really small and it is easier to paint it. And then I've put it at the front of the car, gluing with a little bit of water. Now I'm making the car plates, which is with the name of my nephew and of his age as well. And I've added 2 blue rectangles on each side of the plate. Now we need to add some more features at the back of the car, and again, first of all, I've drawn them with a leaf shaper and then added all the things that we need. Like the car plate and the lights, again using the same technique that I've used before. So first I put the grey fondant, then I've pressed a little bit, and then I added 2 more fondant to make the lights. Now, I don't know all the names of the car, as I'm not really into cars, but so I've added this strip of black fondant, and finally I've added more features at each side of the cake. What I'm using now are the mirrors on each side of the cake, and to make them I'm using some red and black fondant. Inside the black fondant I inserted a cocktail stick to support the mirror when I'm going to put it on the car, and then I've added some oval black fondant in the middle of the red fondant, and again I've added some grey fondant to make the mirror, and then flutter a little bit. Once they're both together, we can insert them onto the cake with the help of a scissor, and I'm gonna put one on each side. The last thing that I've done is to add a red stripe on each side of the cake. And then I've painted the name Abarth. And one last thing, it is to paint everything that is in grey, light grey, with the silver petal dust. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of my new coming tutorials. But let's have a look of next week's video. Did you get what it is? Let me know and let's see if you get it right. Anyway, it's time to say goodbye for now, but don't forget, be creative and have fun.